Hi, hello. Did you know that October is Fire Prevention Month? Well, it is. And we at the CCSA thought it would be fitting to provide you, the viewer, with 5 important safety tips for home fire prevention and home fire safety. So let's start at number 5. And number 5 is quite possibly something that you might not expect or have even thought of. So here's a little piece of trivia for you. Did you know the National Fire Protection Association, or the NFPA, reports that dryers and washing machines cause an average of almost 16,000 fires each year, with dryers causing 92% of them and an average of about $200 million in property damage? I know you're thinking, so what does this mean to you? Well, you need to make sure that your dryer lint catcher is cleaned out after each use, and consider checking your dryer duct to the exterior of your home for excess lint and debris and ensure it's clean and free of that flammable lint. And of course, keep your laundry room clean and free of clutter. Number 4, well, as we move into the winter months, space heaters get used more often. And there's a few things that you might want to consider with space heaters. First, ensure you're using one that bears the label of an approval from a certification agency recognized by the Standards Council of Canada. For example, this can be the CSA, UL, or ULC, or if you're not in Canada, the equivalent in your jurisdiction. This certification label is usually located on the outside of the package that the unit came in, as well as on the unit itself. Second, with space heaters, always remember to keep your space heater on a flat surface and away from combustible materials such as paper, cardboard, cloth, etc., and never leave it unattended. Finally, ensure that space heater is plugged directly into the outlet and never use an extension cord. Space heaters can be very energy intensive and possibly can overheat the circuit, which can cause an electrical fire. So for safest use, make sure it's the only thing plugged into that particular outlet. Speaking of extension cords, this brings me to number 3, which is cords and outlets. You want to ensure that your outlets are not overloaded by multiple appliances plugged into them. One of the best ways to avoid this is to use a power strip with an overload interrupt or a circuit breaker built into it. Now, as far as electrical cords go, always check your cords and ensure that they're in good repair, not frayed or broken before each use. If they are, replace them. It's simply good planning. Now, speaking of planning, this brings me to number 2, which is to consider a fire evacuation plan for your household. It doesn't have to be overly complex. Just how to get out safely and where to gather depending on the situation. Like I said, don't make it complicated. If you have multiple exits, which one to use and when, and where to meet up when you're outside. Now, at the risk of sounding like a safety fanatic,
I fear that ship has sailed.
Okay, I know that ship has sailed, but no plan is worth implementing if you're not going to practice it. A good way to schedule those practices is when we change our clocks. We're still doing that, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so when we spring forward or fall back, anyway, someone can hit the test button on the smoke alarm, and then everyone can practice leaving the house and meeting up outside. Now, I just mentioned smoke alarms, and with those being mentioned, I bet you can speculate, and you've likely figured out which is number 1. And that's right, it's smoke alarms. Now, having worked closely with fire departments in several cities over the span of my career, I've heard several depressing stories about the outcomes of home fires, and that the smoke alarms were either malfunctioning or without batteries, and those outcomes would have likely been quite different had they been working. So, at the same time as you're testing your fire escape plan, replace the batteries in your smoke detectors. And there you have it. There's our top 5 home fire safety and prevention tips. Do you have some that you might like to share? If so, do me a favor, pop them into the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Also, check out the description of this video for links to different programs that we offer here at the CCSA. And I want you to do me a favor. Remember, work healthy, stay healthy.